As technology develops, Pokemon has been represented to us in more and more advanced ways, at least until it reached 3D graphics. Could the systems that bring Pokemon to life be redesigned to make them more lively again? Welcome to part 2 of this dive into the art of Pokemon. As I said in the previous episode, I really hope you watched the video by Dan Floyd on his channel New Frame Plus titled How Has Pokemon's Animation Evolved? For this episode, I'll be exploring the graphics and animations in Pokemon and how a reboot can take advantage of the animation techniques that have developed over the years. Let's get into it. The most powerful graphics card on the planet is your own imagination. Wherever something is lacking in visual representation, our brains are geared towards filling the gap. You read a book and the words on the page will build a world in your mind. Play a game where the characters are just a few pixels big and your imagination gives them a face and an impact on the world around them. For a more in-depth discussion into this, I would like to recommend yet another video, this one by Extra Credits titled In Defense of Imagination. To summarize, there could be great value in letting the player build the world in their mind while the game gives them all the fuel for that imagination. Have the game give them parts of the picture and then ask the players to fill in the rest, as opposed to taking it out of their control and leaving them there to simply be spectators. Each time Game Freak comes out with a new Pokemon game, they try to close the gap more and more between what is just a representative effect on the screen and what is fully animated and requires no imagination from the player. For example, we can see here in Let's Go Eevee, the Electric Attack Thunderbolt requires no imagination from the player. It's an awesome move that feels like it has a strong impact. Now, contrast that to another Pokemon using Bite. Now let's look at Double Kick. Yeah, that's gonna require some imagination. Now for me, why those moves don't feel special is because my expectation is set with the good-looking effects and are then underwhelmed when those standards are let down. Another point of comparison here is that when the player went into a battle on the Game Boy, the screen was pretty well taking the point of view of the trainer. You can only see the back of your own Pokemon and the front of what opposes you, what is charging at you. Nowadays, the camera is flying around the area, giving dynamically awesome shots of the Pokemon just standing there idly. Because we have the environment scene, the trainers standing by, the Pokemon just looping their idle animation while waiting their turn, it looks and feels like what is seen is actually how it is in that world, not a representation. Back when it was just a white background and frozen sprites, I imagined as a child each turn happening almost instantly, one after another, in a glorious, blazing battle as the Pokemon danced around each other in the arena. I remember sharing with my friends in the schoolyard our descriptions of how awesome the battles were in our mind. It is unreasonable to ask the developers to do the work of making every move look great for every Pokemon. If you watched the New Frame Plus episode I recommended, then you understand why. So, what I would like to suggest is to actually take a step back. Go to something that utilizes the imagination of the player and have the graphics simply be the launching point for which they are inspired from. Now, this doesn't mean we have to go back to 32 by 32 pixels and super simple animations. I'm going to throw a few different ideas out here. What if it was 3D, but for each Pokemon to be given a few different animation keyframe poses for them to move into for an action shot? Of course, also layered in with some special effects. Think along the lines of a comic book page, how each frame has the characters in a pose, implying movement and action between them, suggesting the scene. We already have that now, sort of, but they are really just short animation clips that allow them to go back to their idle loop. My suggestion here is to not have idle loops at all. What I'm envisioning is that we could have the camera moving close to one Pokemon as it strikes a pose to give suggestions as to what it is doing, another shot of effects, and finally, the reaction pose of the opponent. Keep in mind, my suggestion here works perfectly fine in an open-world styled gameplay like Arceus and Scarlet and Violet. It could even use the environment around a fight to its advantage with some clever programming. Imagine we have selected for our Arcanine the move Bite. The background fades as it leaps forward into one of a few different action poses as the camera shifts in, probably a pose that shows its teeth. The screen then displays a nice close shot on the opponent going into one of a few different reaction poses, with the effect clamping down on them, the camera shaking to add to the impact. Now it is their turn. Again, they get their pose, effects, and Arcanine reacts. The background lightens up, and now both Pokemon go into a dynamic stance against each other. No idle loop. Time slows to a standstill as the game waits for the player to decide the next move. The camera can move slowly around the field, keeping the tension as it observes the scene. The idea here is to save on the cost of doing in-between animations and just having a number of set poses and positions that the models can interpolate between to give the impression and illusion of action. They don't need to go back to center stage and face each other. We are not beholden to that anymore. These poses in the hands of a good character animator could really show off the personalities of each Pokemon. Add effects on top, and the battles could really come alive in the mind's eye for the players, and the action shots look stunning on the screen. More time could be invested in animations outside of battle if they really wanted to give Pokemon even more life. Additionally, if you already know the moves you want to pick regardless of the outcome of the current move playing out, then I also suggest leaving the options of picking moves up on the screen. Compared to the Game Boy, we have a lot more screen real estate now, and I would love it if the moves played out quickly one after the other. Right now, the games come to a standstill while you navigate menus after the action has ended, and it feels really slow. To prevent the player from making decisions too far ahead of the action, the menus can be grayed out during the small waiting period of the animations going through their motions. I feel like this is a good option to really bring up the pace and entertainment value of the battles. And for one last quick note here, we can see in the game Pokemon Legends Arceus that Game Freak has employed some more advanced animation techniques. The start point of the move Flamethrower or Hyper Beam originates from a Pokemon's mouth and targets the center of the opponent. This is a wonderful, albeit small, step in the right direction. It definitely gives the battle a little more spit and polish. They also use inverse kinematics, a dynamic animation programming technique, to have the Pokemon move their head to look at their opponent or the trainer when they throw a Pokeball. These techniques are exactly what I would use to best utilize the keyframe poses idea I've put forward. But moving on to option number 2. Another idea is that we could go back to 2D animation. For the battles, we have the familiar front-on sprites and a simple but elegant background. Remember those Gen 5 sprites with animated joints? That was so cool! Personally, I don't want 3D models. Those sprites brought all the life and imagination needed to Pokemon. Since we have a lot more pixels and bigger screens, they can really look nice and detailed. I'm curious to know just how many Pokemon fans would actually enjoy, or at least wouldn't be bothered by, going back to 2D. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if I was in the minority here. When looking at exploring the environment, I think 2.5D is the best method to show off a colorful and detailed world while maintaining the aesthetic of 2D animation. Generations 4 and 5 of Pokemon were a nice start in this direction, but I think there is room for improvement. In one of my previous videos, I said, if a player hears about a very rare Pokemon that loves a specific flower, they should be able to find that flower in the middle of a forest somewhere and then get to hunting. If you walk into an open patch of twigs and dead grass in that forest, you can recognize that you just clumsily strolled into the den of a Nidoking. I believe that kind of graphical detail can be achieved in a 2.5-dimensional setup, because you can typically see more of the backdrop. Top-down graphics confine what's on the screen by how far away the camera is. 2.5D confines what is shown of the horizon by the distance and angle of the camera. For a quick and dirty example of a 2.5D environment to explore, look no further than Octopath Traveler. It simultaneously inspires the imagination, gives the kinds of details that helps fill in that world, and has room to fill it with monsters. Yes, I know you can't see the monsters roaming around in that game, but there is room for it. Plus, when you hit an encounter, it takes you to a separate battle screen just like Pokemon does. I'm not saying that it has to follow this style exactly, but we have proof that something this ideal is indeed achievable. Well, that covers it for part 2. Next episode, we will look into character design, the way Pokemon come together to actually be a Pokemon. I really recommend that you watch Jocat's video, How Do You Design a Pokemon?, as it really covers a lot of the basics, and I look forward to seeing you for part 3, where I talk about what all that means for a reboot. In the meantime, what do you think of my ideas? What methods would you like to see to bring the world of Pokemon to life on your screen? Go to the comments, let me hear it. Remember to subscribe and all that good stuff to make my Wooloo happy. But also, if you could do me a solid, let people know about my videos by sharing them on social media or whatever platform you prefer. I would really love to get these in front of more eyeballs, and it would mean a lot. Regardless if you do, I super appreciate that you took the time to watch the video anyway. So, continue to be wonderful, and I'll see you next time.